We chose to adopt because we were ready to start a family, and we didn't think there was anything so special about us, and we knew that there were children out there that needed a home.
Adoption is something that had been on our heart for a really long time, and realized, it wasn't this mountainous task that we thought it was, and realized, God had been kind of banging on our heart to do it for years, and we finally listened.
We chose to adopt because we wanted to add 2 more children to our family, and because it's a beautiful picture of what the gospel is.
It was not something that we had planned. I think it was something that God put in front of us.
We chose to adopt because professionally we both saw a lot of children that had a need for a family.
We just felt the need to be able to provide a home for somebody who didn't have one.
Having a kid anyway is expensive. We've had 2 biological kids and we adopted 1 kid, and when you run the numbers, it's about a break-even thing. Whenever you adopt a kid, a lot of times you're going to adopt, if you adopt internationally, then you're going to get a kid that's probably 1.5 years, 2 years old. Well, if you raise a child from birth to 1.5 years, 2 years, and you factor in all those expenses and the medical costs associated with it, it costs about the same as adoption does. And if you adopt domestically, a lot of the times, if it's a foster to adopt program, then everything's paid for by government assistance.
Adoption is very expensive, but through grants and fundraising, we were able to adopt.
We found that the option or the route we took wasn't very expensive. It was a burden, but we've been blessed by family, people around us who chipped in and made the process a lot more reasonable financially.
So adoption definitely is expensive, but what we really found was God made the way for us.
Isn't everything really expensive? You want to buy a car, it doesn't cost any more than buying a new car.
When we got into it, we thought cost wasn't a matter. It was God's call.
Would we adopt again? In a heartbeat, no questions asked.
I would adopt again in a heartbeat.
Absolutely, in a heartbeat, yeah.
The road can be long and tough in adoption, and while we feel that our family is now complete, we are thankful for the way that God built our family through adoption.
Absolutely, we would adopt again. Our adoption was an older child adoption, and so he's been here for 2 years now.
We would definitely adopt again, but the timing has to be correct, though. We're going to need some time to bond with him and him bond with our family.
We've done it 4 times, so I think the answer is yes.
Advice to those who are considering fostering or adopting: prayer, definitely. I think a lot of seeking the Lord and just seeing where He leads you. And I think being flexible is a huge thing.
I think it's one of those things you could talk yourself out of if you let the human spirit guide you there. Sometimes some things we're just not meant to overthink, and for us that was definitely the case with our adoption.
Do your research. Although the research, you look at a bunch of stuff and it can be overwhelming, which is kind of why we wanted to start this adoption ministry at Heartland. It seems mountainous. It seems like a big task, and it seems like there's so much information, but really it's not that overwhelming once you get into it.
I would surround yourself with people that have been there and done that, and just pursue every form of education you can about adoption.
It's definitely worthwhile. There's lots of kids out there that need good homes, and you don't have to have the greatest income or the perfect size bedroom home. Be available.
I personally would say you need to find people who've been through the process, communicate with them, find out what the process is like, what's entailed.
And I would say that definitely being open-minded and willing to let your plan be different.
If someone's interested in adoption, I would suggest the first step be to pray and ask God if this is how He wants to build your family. And if so, then start to look around the world and locally and decide where your child is. Then look for a home study agency and always ask lots of questions.
Keep your heart open and not try to talk yourself out of it. If God puts that on your heart, He put it there for a reason.
Our first step was we had a good friend that was adopting, and he actually shared the young man that we adopted, Isaac, on Facebook. And my first step was to actually call him and say, "Hey, am I crazy?"
We actually approached adoption in 2 different ways. We did both a private home study and went through the local Cabinet for Families and Children so that we would be available for children in either way.
Before you figure out what type of adoption, really focus on what is the pros and cons of each one, and then what's on your heart, and talk to God.
What's the first step if you decide to adopt? The thing that people usually do last, it's pray. You have to be, have the Lord on your side to do it. God builds homes, we don't.